Shields up, Paladins, and welcome to a For Honor Hero Guide. As you can tell by the title of this video, I'll be talking to you all about the Ocelotl and how I like to use this particular character. The Ocelotl is one of the hybrid characters within the Outlanders faction. He has a medium difficulty rating, as well as he is a disabler and a ganker. His base stats or his health is set to 130, his stamina is set to 120, and his sprint speed is set to 6.5 milliseconds. With all this being said and done, let's go ahead and jump right on over to his feats. Starting with his tier 1, his first feat is called Huntsman's Spirits, which is a passive ability. Become a spirit upon dying, slowly returning to life. Spirits can move undetected, but cannot attack. Tireless, which is a passive ability. Lose stamina at a slower rate, and Iron Lungs, which is a passive ability. You can still sprint when out of stamina. His tier 2 feats are Vengeful Mark, which is a passive ability. Enemies that kill you are marked for a short time, their location is revealed, and they take extra damage. Executioner's Respite, which is a passive ability. When executing an enemy hero, gain an extra amount of health based on the execution's duration. And Bear Trap, which is set a trap that damages and stops victims in their tracks. His tier 3 feats are Quasicotal's Blessing, which is a passive ability. Killing enemies temporarily grants you extra attack damage and increased speed. Protected Revive, which is a passive ability. Your Revive grants temporary shield to the revived ally. And then Second Wind, which is recover some of your health. And finally, for his tier 4, we have Trapper's Reach, which is throw a spear to damage and bleed foes, pulling them into a guard break, only usable in guard mode. Regenerate, which is a passive ability. Regenerate your health when out of combat. And Stalwart Banner, which is nearby allies continuously regain health. So, the type of feats that I really like to use with him after really getting him up there in a couple reps, the more feats that for this guy, for his tier 1, I really like Tireless more than Huntsman Spirits. Huntsman Spirit is good for a couple reasons. Of course, you can run around the map. Your sprint speed is increased a little bit. Anybody on the enemy team cannot see you, which is also a good thing. But the thing that you have to worry about is, of course, is whenever you're going to spawn somewhere. So if you have dead allies that you're wanting to spawn next to them and revive them, well, there's a circle that you have to worry about. Well, if the dead ally is within that circle, the game will not let you spawn there because it classifies them as an enemy, quote unquote. I'm sure that might get changed in the long run, but it's just kind of odd that it's like you can't spawn here. You know, you got some obvious places that you can't spawn, like on ladders. You can't use zip lines, that type of thing. And you can't spawn right next to an enemy and then start attacking. You have to, of course, distance yourself a little bit. But also the good thing about that is that you can also kind of run around and you are slowly regenerating health, but you can also try to play it as maybe you want to play as like an assassin for a little bit, as wait for someone's low, and if they're trying to run off, go ahead and get out of that mode and then attack. That's one of the great things about that feat. But for me personally, I found that using Tireless as a tier 1 was a lot more effective. And I'll get more into that later on. For his tier 2, I use Executioner's Respite over Vengeful Mark. Because a lot of the times that whenever I'm fighting somebody, specifically in Dominion and or in Breach, a lot of the times I'm usually by myself, or I'm getting ganked, or the enemy that I'm particularly fighting after I'm dead runs off to go heal or runs to set on an objective. So then at that point, they're not anywhere near anybody that will take that extra damage. And if they are near somebody, then they're just re-engaging in a gank at that point. So to me, that is it's great that it shows them on the map, but also at the same time, they're not really using that extra damage to the team that's playing with me, not really using that extra damage that this particular feat unlocks. Hence why Executioner's Respite is good, just because he has some very long executions, which will gain you a little bit extra health in the long run here. Now, his tier 3, I use Second Wind. Now, really for his tier 3, it's dealer's choice, really, because you can do a lot of things with this tier 3. So whenever you kill somebody, you also get extra attack damage and increased speed, which is great because he is slow. He is a little bit slower than the Magi, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe the same sprint speed as a Highlander. So just kind of get that idea in your head, if you haven't used this character, that he is not the quickest out there. So that does help a little bit, but keep in mind it's only for like 10 seconds. Um, so it's not gonna stay active for a long period of time. That may help you get from like C to B, if you will, if you're just going to jog there. Um, so it's you kind of, even though it's passive ability, it could help in some situations. It again, vice versa. Protective Revive is the same thing. He has a couple of feats, like Rising Dawn, so that could be great if you're going to set yourself up that way. Um, so whenever you're reviving someone, instead of 50% health, they get 75% health. If you're using Rising Dawn, then on top of that, they get a shield because you're using Protective Revive, which is great. Or then you can use Second Wind, like I do, which I usually tend to favor. If I can give myself more health within the fight, that's great. Then finally, for his tier 4, I love Trapper's Reach, which is a unique feat just for him. So you throw a spear, in which that spear has some pretty good distances on it. Um, so that spear sticks them, causes bleed, and pulls them right into you for an instant guard break. A lot of people have used this as, since you're guaranteed the guard break, a lot of people have set themselves up to where they guard break, throw you off the ledge to get the guaranteed kill, or they try to set them up for throwing you into a wall to get that guaranteed top heavy, or what have you. If they're nowhere near anything, they're just doing that to cause the bleed to you, and then they get the side heavy for free. Trapper's Reach is very, very good for setting stuff up like that. Regenerate, again, is always good. Install World Banner, of course, is always good as well. So is Tier 3 and Tier 4, in my opinion. It's really user's choice. Now, going into his perks a little bit, his perks that I would recommend would be, of course, Remedy, Feline, Agility, and Clever Tactics. Of course, I play a lot more of Dominion and Breach, so hence why I would recommend Clever Tactics. Now, if you are not really playing much of an objective game mode, you can swap out Clever Tactics for Rising Dawn. Again, for that protective revive, that's always great. Um, but of course, Remedy, get extra health on kill. Feline agility, he is slow, so anything to help him speed up a little bit quicker, which is always great. And then, of course, Clever Tactics that allows you to keep him playing quicker. So, with all that being said and done, let's go ahead and jump right over to his hero tactics. Now, this is what the game wants to teach you about how to use the Ocelotl. I'm pretty much just going to go through everything that the game tells you in his move set, what's good, what's not, and stuff like that. So all that stuff will be up on the screen right about now. So of course, renown hybrid. As we all know, your renown is bounced across all game modes. Of course, that is non-Dominion and Breach game modes. So, Revenge remote, as we all know, boosts damage and health. All attacks are uninterruptible. Parries and throws knock enemies down. Attacks are auto parried upon activation. Defense is static. Your guard stands and remains active in the direction he designates, like most static guard heroes. Um, that the Ocelotl also has a normal block, so do keep that in mind. So, with all this, he has infinite chain or infinite alternating chains that the Ocelot can chain Any combination of light attacks, heavy attacks, zone attacks, and bash together, as long as no one move is used twice in succession. Infinite chain finishers. If the Ocelotl performs two of the same moves in succession, for example, light light or zone into zone, during the infinite alternating chain, the second attack will be counted as a chain finisher. So infinite chain properties, depending on when a move is performed during an infinite chain, the Ocelotl's attacks will attain certain properties. So you have the apoletic lights. So you have your chain and finisher lights are slightly faster. So that's whenever you're going into, like I say, zone attack, light, bash, light. You know, those lights are always just a tad bit fast. Um, whenever you are using the Ocelotl within that particular, with his alternating chain that he has. So then you also have Tonatsu's heavies, and again, I'm I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing a lot of this, but chain heavies is slightly faster, while heavy finisher is unblockable. You got the double edged zone, so a chain and finisher zone are slower than the opener variants when finisher zones come from the right guard instead of the left guard. Jaguar's bash, so chain bash is slower but feintable, while finisher bash is a fast pitting move. You have your chain openers, which all dodge attacks, zone attacks. Tie locks, thunder, and hunter snare count as an opener for their respective input. You have your uninterruptible zone, so Ocelotl zone attacks all possess the uninterruptible property. Chain and finisher zones are or has an uninterruptible stance that starts up earlier into the attack, and most instances are interruptible. So do keep that in mind, is that that's really the only hyper armor, if you will, that the Ocelotl has, is whenever he's going into a zone attack. Now, with that being said, all zone attacks are feintable. Also, for his damaging bash, all the Ocelotl's bash moves deal direct health damage and can ledge. As a result, they do not guarantee your follow up damage. Bash follow up rules: opener and finisher bash cannot chain on miss. However, mid chain bash can chain on a miss. Enhanced dodge attacks: the Jaguar's claw and Jaguar's tail are enhanced, thus do not bounce when blocked. So the Hunter stance is a mobile hidden stance. The startup has a dodge property. Now, the Hunter stance properties, the Ocelotl can perform defensive moves such as blocking or parrying while in hidden stance. The Ocelotl can move around while holding the stance, moving faster than normal. The Hunter snare, Hunter the during Hunter stance, inputting a heavy will have the Ocelotl leap forward for an attack with his club. Distance covered by the Hunter snare is greater than a normal dodge. The Hunter Snare damage is the Hunter Snare deals damage in two portions. If the attack is blocked, it will only apply the first tick of damage. However, if this attack successfully lands, it will pin the target and deal a second instance of damage at the end of the pin. So, and that's really about it that the game really wants to teach you about the Ocelotl. Now, one final thing that I'll put in here on how I like to use him is that he is a hybrid character. I really like to use him kind of like how you would use the Magi, where the Magi has two stances as well. But the thing about the Ocelotl is that his damage is not overpowered per se, but he does hurt. If you have a lot of players that have played the Berserker in the past, or even maybe someone of the Shaolin, I would say you would kind of get the hang of him pretty quickly with his infinite chain that he has. A lot of people I've seen, uh, and more so, I would say, more so on the Berserker side of things, where you almost have to feint almost constantly. You can do that with this guy, and the mind games that you can simply play with him is great. As you know, with your infinite chain, as long as you don't hit the same attack twice, you can keep that thing going. Hence why I like Tireless, since he has that infinite chain. One of the things that also I would recommend with him is that since he is a hybrid character, um, you can play him as offensive or defensive as you want. He is really an all around viable character in my personal opinion. Even though that his feats to me are kind of lackluster, he has, like I said, some great ones. But for this particular character, I think switching up some of his feats instead of using with his unique ones will be more beneficial in the long run for this particular character. So hopefully I answered a lot of questions, comments, concerns. If I did, great. If I didn't or if I missed something, please leave a comment down below. I'll be more than happy to read it and then coming back to you when hopefully have a great conversation. All right, guys. This is the Lost Paladin, and I will see you in the next video.